Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started? And what are they doing to stay there? And oh my goodness, we're the end of season 3, coming to an end with the big finale, episode 137. And boy, do I have a special guest today. I get to sit down with my big brother. His name is Mark Waller. Mark, many of you know him. He serves as the general manager for A-1 Freeman Moving Group here in Dallas. He's also a former president of DallasHR and the North Texas Relocation Professionals. And Mark, I've been wanting to have you on the show for a long time.
Really?
Good to have you on the show.
It's glad to be here. I'm glad to be here.
Oh my goodness, man.
Good to be here. Glad to be here.
Well, and I'm excited because, I was thinking about whenever I asked you to come on, I just seen something about someone was looking back at 2022, and I thought, man, wouldn't it be cool not just to look back at 2022, but look back at your career and maybe some things from my career and talk about some impact. I mean, we've served in some of the same circles throughout our career. It's been pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Been a great journey, and it is true. Our careers really dovetail quite well and align with one another. So.
Yeah. So, hey, let me just say right now, you better get out a pen, get out your journal, take some notes. You're going to get some nuggets here because we're going to look back at some big moments in our careers, successes as well as failures. And to kind of kick off the show, many of you, our listeners, know who Mark Waller is, but they may not know the Mark Waller story. I would love for you to just share with the audience to kind of kick things off a little bit about your story. Like, where did you grow up and how in the world did it lead you to leadership?
Well, of course, I was born and raised in Edmond. You're aware of that.
I was right there alongside of you.
You were, had pretty normal childhood, walked to and from school, go fishing at a nearby pond on occasion, sometimes climb on the roof and watch the rodeo behind our house. I remember doing that.
You remember that.
I can still remember sharing a bunk bed with you and you falling out of the top bunk and breaking your collarbone and wearing around with little. Do you remember this?
I do remember that. I didn't have that on my notes as I was reflecting. I forgot about that.
So I recall that. So it's pretty normal childhood. By the time I was, third or fourth grade, start going around mowing lawns for money. So we could have a few extra dollars to spend on the weekend. And a lot of influences in my life at that time. Our mother being the main one that taught us the value of hard work, taught me not to steal or to lie. She had a very persuasive way of teaching that lesson.
It's called the belt.
Yeah, and you're familiar with that as well. And my grandmother, of course, paternal grandmother, she was a great teacher as well. I had on my paternal grandfather, my grandparents were wheat farmers. And when we were kids, you were quite a bit younger. We spent a lot of time out there on the farm, making trails in the wheat field, playing in the grain trucks till you itched so bad you couldn't go to sleep at night. So a pretty, normal childhood. Another influential person in my life at that time was our Uncle Walter. I remember in the 4th grade, he bought me a lawnmower.
Oh.
And bought me a lawnmower so I could continue my lawn mowing business. And I could go across Broadway, buy 15 cents worth of gas and mow lawns all day long, all over the city of $1 for the front and $2 for the back.
That's fantastic.
Unless it was a really fancy house, I might get 2 for the front. So, but from there, by the time I was in the 9th grade, our parents bought a bowling center. They owned Edmond Lanes. They bought a bowling center in Seminole, Oklahoma. And at that time, I remember my parents coming to me and telling me we're moving. And, most of the time when you hear about these stories, you hear about somebody who's like, doesn't want to leave their friends. They're really super disappointed. I was so excited.
Wow.
To move because I was really struggling in school. And I knew that a move like this meant a brand new start. And sure enough, we moved right in the middle of my 9th grade year to Seminole. So I started second semester in first year of high school and ended up getting that fresh start and ended up doing well there at Seminole High School and went from there, of course, to University of Oklahoma.
Well, that's fantastic. You talk about our mother. She was on episode 36, end of season 1, and that was a thrill having her on the show. And yes, incredible influences. Yeah, I forgot about the bunk bed. And you talked about fishing. I remember us going fishing for some crawdads.
Yes, yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, put the bacon in the little hosiery thing, and
Yeah, that was
get it in
fantastic.
there. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And speaking of our mother and being quite influential and teaching us not to take things, I tell a story about integrity about Mr. Cagle's grocery. I
Yes.
believe I was in that mix of
Yeah, you were in that
stealing
mix
as well. And so I learned not to steal there. Absolutely fantastic. I love that. And of course, you moved to Seminole. So real quick, before we jump into your career, how did it feel to come to Seminole, Oklahoma and be part of a state championship football team?
Listen, let me tell you something. There's nothing better. There's nothing better. That's one of the greatest experiences of my life. It was exciting. It was exhilarating. Now, to be transparent here, I was pretty much a blocking dummy.
The blocking.
Sometimes a tackling dummy, but mostly a blocking dummy in that. In fact, we had a defensive coordinator. His name was Jim Webb. He ended up being head coach at Tecumseh.
Okay.
But at the time, he would pull me off the sideline during practice. He'd put me on the defense and line me up against Mike Randall, an all-state tackle that probably weighed, 270 pounds against my 150 frame. And every time he would hit me, it felt like I was being slammed into a concrete sidewalk. But this went on, this went on and on. Then when we're doing workouts, Coach Webb would put me on the reel runner and tell me how pathetic I was. And, but I'm thinking I made Mike Randall a better tackle and I made Coach Webb a better coach. And that was my contribution to that state championship. But I can remember the bus rides to playoff games and back from those playoff games, the bus ride to the state championship game, walk into grandmother's with you after the game. And it's just really exciting to say I was part of it. And so, I think anybody that would be associated with that would tell you the same thing on any level, just to be a part of that team. And my first leadership lessons actually came, I think it was my senior year in high school playing football. On our football team, we had black players, we had white players, we had Indians from various tribes in Oklahoma that we all played together. We shared a common goal and common objectives when we walked onto that football field, and we were brothers. And it was that way throughout the season. Actually, during the football season, on and off the field, we were looking out for one another. We were encouraging one another. It's because this group of people had come together and we're all moving the same direction after the same objectives. And so the same goals. And so that was really the first time I looked at that and I said, you know what? People are after the same thing. All of that other stuff fades into the background and they're all moving the same direction. And so that was a big leadership lesson that I reflected upon when I started my career and continue to do so even to this day. It's just, and you can see that in any organization or on any sports team, you can see the same thing, that when you get people moving toward the same common goal, if you got something going there, they can do great things.
That's good stuff right there. I was thinking when you said Mike Randall, it just sounds like a big guy. He just sounds like a big guy. But I was wondering, so I had in season 2, at the end of season 2, I had our football coach, Coach Mike Snyder, who is still at Seminole today. Now, was he part of your coaching staff at that time?
He was my position coach.
Okay.
And so he was over receivers, tight ends. I was a tight end, of course. School, and
yeah. Number 81.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's a great story. I love that leadership lesson too. As you talk about, we hear that today about leaders, how they inspire. And that's what the coaching staff did at Seminole,
Mhm.
is they inspired everyone towards this common goal, and everybody just moved towards it. And then, of course, Seminole won that state championship. I remember riding the charter bus to the University of Central Oklahoma. And interesting, I may have shared this with you before. I ended up graduating from, it's now known as Central Oklahoma. It was Central State University at the time. And that's where I met Dana, my wife. But I remember being at that state championship game and us walking to grandma's house after the game. And I remember thinking that's where I want to go to college.
Yeah.
And that was during that time. So that kind of shaped my my thoughts around, wow, wouldn't it be great to go to school here? And I ended up going to school and getting a degree there. And that was fantastic. I love that leadership lesson. Now, I told you, all of our listeners today, you're going to get a lot out of this show, because of course, Mark's been a great mentor for me and many, many others. And we're all going to learn a lot here. Hey, let's talk about your career journey. Any thoughts around like a moment, like early in your career, like you just kind of, you got out of college and like, you're ready to hit the big time. Any leadership lessons? Maybe let's just start with maybe early career.
Yeah, I think there are some there. When you know this, and most of, I'm sure the audience, that anybody that graduated from college or earned their master's or whatever, understand this. I can't remember walking out of Adams Hall after my last final, down the steps and getting to the bottom step and thinking, where are all the employers? I thought they'd be here begging for me to come to work for them, and finding out that there's still some things that you have to do. Actually, that really never ends. You have to show up, you have to give effort, and you have to be patient, continue to learn, all of those things. So those things are important. There are several things that in my career, in my lifetime, that have impacted where I'm at today. And most of them revolve around decision making. I went to work early in my career for Red Arrow Freight Lines in Dallas, Texas. So I had to make a decision to move to Dallas, Texas. And I think you had to do, that was a key decision in your life as well. So I moved to Dallas, Texas, but it didn't stop there. I took an opportunity with the same company, went to Wichita, Kansas, then moved back to Oklahoma City.
Within the same company?
Within the same company.
All right.
So 2 moves there, and that's over 8-year period.
You've experienced that corporate relocation a little bit about that, right? Okay.
Right. But I didn't know enough about it at the time. And so, but my wife and I, it was a new adventure for us, and we would move. But I think the really first big decision I had to make was my decision to leave Red Arrow Freight Lines and look for a new opportunity. And that was a tough one because, I had a family, had 3 small children. That was risky. When you decide you're going to leave a company, you update your resume, you start your search. And, but I'd come to the point in that company where, I was a young manager, 27 years old, terminal manager in Oklahoma City, and having a really tough time at that time with the Teamsters Union. And I finally decided, you know what, I think there's better opportunities out there. I'm going to move on. And my wife agreed with that. And that's how I ultimately ended up in the moving business. Yeah,
that's interesting. It started with that, taking action though, right? A lot of people think about making a move. They think, you know what, I need to make a move, but they actually make that move. That's a big jump. I remember when I moved to Dallas, Texas, to come to work with you. And I remember it was so hard because I was leaving our parents' business. It's very, very difficult. But I knew that, it was time. And as you shared that story just now, I thought about what Bob Stoops would say. It also says this in the Bible, but there's a season for everything. And that was your season with that company. And now it's time for a new season, but you had to make that move towards that. And that's great. So I love you sharing that story, because I know there's some people listening that are thinking, you know what, I need to make a move. I just need to do it, right? Not stop thinking about it, but doing it.
Well, it's a difficult decision to make, and I thought about it. I spoke to my wife about it, got agreement with her. I went and spoke to other respected leaders and asked for their input. Is this something I should consider doing? And I got good advice from a number of people. Then I pulled the trigger and made the decision to do it. And it was one of the best decisions
Love that.
that I've ever made.
I love how you talk about how you speak to wise counsel, right? You went and talked to a lot of people, and then you made that decision once you got all that information, and that's fantastic. Good lesson. What's another lesson that has shaped you, Mark?
Well, another one. I had gone to work in a relocation company, and the owner came to me after being there, I don't know, a year or so, and said, "I'd like you to move to Houston and open my company down there."
Another move.
And yeah, another move. I mean, I've got Wichita, Kansas, back to Oklahoma City, back to Dallas, now to Houston. And agreeing to do that, I moved to Houston, and that move, starting that company from nothing, hiring all the employees and getting that company going. That was where I first really began to learn leadership. And so, when you talk about those big moments, one of those big moments was one of our EVPs happened to come down for, I don't remember what the occasion was. It may have been like a Christmas gathering or something at the end of the year. And as he was leaving, he just reached into his bag and he handed me a book. And it was the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And I took that book home and I read it. And I joined John Maxwell's Impact Club, where you get I think it was once a month. It may have been more often than that, but it was roughly about once a month to get a tape. And I can still remember, of course, people today aren't going to understand this, but you would go to the mailbox and you get out and your tapes come in. Now you can listen to your
audio tapes.
Yeah, your audio tapes.
Known as cassette tapes.
Tapes in your car.
Wow.
Now you can listen to podcasts instantly on your phone anywhere. But that's when my leadership really began to grow. So there were really about three key areas. That was one.
Okay.
Number two was about the time that I had joined this Impact Club and was really growing my leadership. I came across a Harvard business study.
Okay.
And I can remember one line from the study, and it's the only line I cared about. And it said, it was about the reason that people leave their job, why they quit.
Okay.
And it said that 93% of people that leave their job do not leave for more money. They leave because they do not feel appreciated. And that had a tremendous impact on me. I really couldn't believe that statistic. And I made a commitment at that time to make sure that everybody I work with knows how much I appreciate their contribution and the work that they do. And I'll tell you something else too. That statistic is true today. And if you want that, if anybody wants to look this up, you can go to SHRM's HR magazine, the summer edition of 2022.
Okay.
According to that article in that magazine, the number one reason people stay at a job right now is work-life balance.
Right.
And that makes sense.
Yep.
The number two reason that they stay at a job is the recognition of their work. And when you say the recognition of their work, to me, when you're recognizing somebody's work, you're showing appreciation, and that's and that's what translates. So, that's if you're going to build a culture, which is important in any organization, to have a good, strong culture around common values with common goals. One of the key components of that is appreciation for your employees and what they do and the contributions they make. And I'm telling you, the people that I work with that leave my company leave because they're retiring. I've been at this office 22 years. almost everyone that I work with has been there a decade or more.
That's
And
fantastic.
newbies have replaced retirees. So it's just incredibly important. And so those are some of the key things that the Harvard study is huge. Probably the last thing that I'll mention, because I want to hear some of yours, is the decision to join A-1 Freeman. This company has been tremendous for me. It's allowed me to grow as a leader. It's allowed me to build a team, to build a company. And the leaders that I work for, Larry Van Zandt, Jim Freeman, Dennis Levitt, these guys have been a tremendous influence on me, great leaders for me, and I appreciate them so much. But that's been tremendous for me.
And I've met all the gentlemen you're talking about. They're legends. They're legends in this industry. Are you kidding me?
The service
Yeah,
for sure.
No, that's fantastic. I love that. And you know, when you bring up John Maxwell, I mean, that's great. I mean, I get chills.
How about a move to Dallas? That should
Right.
give you chills too. A move to Dallas, John Maxwell. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's almost like we've mirrored each other in the careers. I keep following you. I don't want to keep doing that relocation.
I'm following you now.
Okay. All right. No, I don't know about that, but you know, I was thinking about, you're right. I came to Dallas, and then I was a manager in the company, a young manager, and I had my own department. Like I was like this, you know, I thought at the time I didn't understand a leadership. I was managing. Right. I was managing my day and not leading my life. I was not leading people. And I remember I was really struggling with an employee personnel issue. And I remember calling you saying, man, I got this big problem. And I had this, you know, that black cloud you have that just like hovers and it just won't go away.
We know about the black cloud. Yes.
And I remember you handed me a John Maxwell tape called Making the Tough Call.
Yeah.
And I put that in my car driving home, and it was just like all of a sudden the light switched in my career. I felt like I had a coach, somebody to coach me along the way, and that's where my thirst for like leadership began. And that was certainly a big moment. And man, I got to tell you, this is fantastic. I love how you shared the recognition and where that came from, right? And how you saw it. I did not realize that someone gave you, I was wanting to know, I don't even think I've ever asked you that, how you were introduced to the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And I tell people all the time, that should be required reading. I mean, that is like the book.
I think I've handed that book out more than any other book.
It's
and usually to people on my team.
Yeah. It's definitely a game changer. And you talk about recognition, things like that in people. And I was thinking about a moment for me. And a moment for me is whenever I decided to go work for another company, and I joined the company as the operations manager. And I was like, okay, here we go. I feel the momentum. I get over to the company and it's a mess. Like it's a mess. And I was like, I guess that's why they hired me, because it's a mess, right? To clean this up and get it going. And I remember calling you, telling you, you're like, and I said, man, this is a mess. And I've got these, all these issues, you know, and I need to get people on my side. And I called you and you said, well, do you know anybody that can come, you know, work with you? And I was like, well, I know this one guy. And he said, well, if you don't call him, I'm going to call him to come work for me.
I remember that.
And I called him. His name is Heitor Defaria, and hired Heitor, and he come in and showed me what the value of great people, being surrounded by great people, what that looked like. And he made a big difference, huge difference in my life. And one of the leadership lessons, and we both have talked about this, is a story I've shared in my book. And he, you know, it was a time where I said, hey, we got to do some training here. We got to get people to move in the same direction, just like you talked about. And so I said, let's have a training session. And he said, that's great. I'll set all this up. I said, okay, that's great. So he set all these folding chairs up in the warehouse, and I came in the morning and everything was ready to go. There was a pen, a clipboard, and a tape measure on all these chairs. And there was a broom on every single chair, a little broom. And I was like, hey, Tor, this is fantastic. But what's the broom? What's that all about? And he said, we got to set the expectations. we got to make sure that everybody knows what we expect. We expect clean uniforms. We expect our offices clean. We expect the trucks clean. We expect the homes clean. And I remember thinking at that time, this is leadership. And he really helped me understand the importance and the value of great people.
He's on my list too.
Well,
When you left there, I hired him.
yeah, and of course, I left there a couple of years later. The first call you made was to who?
Hector, yeah.
It's Hector.
You
That's
bet.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so that was a big moment for me in my career. And as you talk about that, the common theme is always going to be people, and I just love that. How about you? What are some other big moments as you continue to move forward in your career?
Well, I think another big moment would have been my involvement with North Texas Relocation Professionals and DallasHR later. I think it was incredibly important to begin connecting with people. Because one of the things that I figured out is I can learn something from anybody.
Okay.
And the more people I connect with and the more I learn about them and what they do and how they do it, the more I learn and the better I become. So, I think that was critically important. I'm not sure exactly how it happened. Ending up as president of NTRP. Actually, I do know how it happened.
I believe that's in 2009, right?
Yeah, it was 2009.
Okay.
And then we roped you in to
Yeah,
come in afterwards.
right.
But I think that was critically important, not only because of connecting with people, but you continue to develop your leadership. I found that especially true at DallasHR, working through various committees, being committee leadership, and then later DallasHR president. So I think those were some critical things. And, you mentioned in the past about certain things that kind of validate that you're doing the right thing.
Yes.
Some of those validations came along the way. I know I've been recognized in my own company for, as GM of the year. I've been recognized as Saul Gresky.
Right. Relocation professional, right, of the year.
Which you have as well. Leadership recognition from DallasHR as well. So all of those things to me kind of validate what you're doing. I have a pool of people that I can go to for help. I can't tell you how many times I've made a phone call because I'm trying to fill a position, or I've made a phone call because somebody else is trying to find a position. But we can help each other in this big network that we created. You're saying your network is your net worth is dead on.
Right.
And so I think it's been tremendous for me.
Yeah. You found your lane. Right.
I think so.
You start networking and you're trying to find your lane, and then you become president. And you're right. That's a road sign. It validates, hey, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Keep going. Keep doing this. Okay, you're recognized Saul Gresky Award. Keep going. Keep doing what you do. And I think those mile markers have really helpful. And me too. You talk about being involved in the industry. I want to ask you just real quick though, how has it helped you? You serve that time, because when you volunteer, right, and you get involved in any organization, it takes a little bit of time, right? There's a commitment there, and you are serving, and you're investing some time of your week to that organization. How's that made you a better leader in your company?
Well, I think just the ability to not only to invest your time, but to enlist and lead other people. When you're, I took over, I think my first significant role at DallasHR was leading the membership committee.
Okay.
Well, and leading the membership committee, you've got a group of, 8 people or so, and you have a number of different responsibilities. You can't do them all yourself.
Right. Right.
When we were young managers, like you talked about earlier, I can still remember trying to manage things and control everything by myself. When you learn to work through people toward common goals, it is your ability to get things done multiplies. And so that experience working through leading those committees at DallasHR, leading the board at DallasHR, that translates right back into your own company. You take the lessons that you can learn, that you've learned there, you take them right back into your own company. And I've always done that. It's made me a better leader at work. And not only does it make you a better leader, but then you have this group of great people that you're connected with.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just hard to put it into words how
Yeah.
important that is.
Yeah. Friendships like no other. What's interesting is I had someone ask me a question recently and they said, what's one thing you didn't see coming? And I thought, that is a great question. What's something I didn't see coming when I started, getting involved, whether it's NTRP or getting involved with DallasHR. And as I thought about it, I thought, one thing I didn't see coming was getting certified. Getting certified with my CRP, Certified Relocation Professional, back in the day with ERC. And then years later, getting certified with my PHR. We both sat for the exams and we both got certified. Yeah. And I tell people all the time, it's not about the letters. It's about the journey. It's about going through the process. And now all of a sudden, once you go through that process, you grow so much because you learn about these different areas. And then you start having conversations about all these different areas, from business strategy to workforce planning to compensation to risk management. All of these, in relocation, you start talking about tax. It's not just about boxes and trucks. And I've become so much more just from taking those certifications.
I have to tell you, one of my fondest periods at DallasHR was studying for that PHR with you, meeting you up there over the lunch.
Going in the class.
Through those,
right?
Yeah, doing the class at night, going through the test and the practice test and working on that that was a period of months.
Yeah.
Getting prepared for that. So yeah, that was a great experience. And of course, once you have it, it's, you look back on the journey, like you said, the journey to get it was what was most important. So.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. That's fantastic. I love that. You've been your company for a very long time. And I remember when you started, when I started at Armstrong, I remember taking a big moment for me was when I decided to join Armstrong. I was just like, I was struggling. I was not in my lane. I was managing again. I was, in these management positions. And at the time I thought it was the job, but what I learned back later, it was the people, right? The leadership. But that didn't line up. But I remember a big moment for me was taking a 50% pay cut to join Armstrong in a non-management role. At the time, it was a sales role. But I remember kind of did what you did. I seeked wise counsel. I talked to a lot of different people. And I remember thinking, I just felt like I needed to do this. But it all came down to, I guess, what I want to share here is it came down to the why. I had to know my why before I took that job. And my why was I wanted to have autonomy in my career, and I wanted to be surrounded by great people. And that still applies today. And I saw that and I was like, well, it's worth it. And of course, a sales role, you can eventually, the potential to make more money is there if you're successful. Right. But I remember that being a big moment for me. And I talk to people all the time that they want to do something different, or even in their own company. And I tell them all the time, there's, in John Maxwell, 21 Irrefutable Laws, he talks about, hey, sometimes, you have to live the law of sacrifice. And the law of sacrifice says sometimes you have to give up to go up. And that's happened for me a few times. And of course, with Armstrong, I gave up a lot to go up. And that was a pivotal moment in my career. Right. Yeah.
And
how about you?
I've shared that story numerous times. Yeah. With my kids.
With your children.
With my kids.
Amen.
Sometimes
it's temporary.
To go up.
Yeah, it's temporary. Here we are though. We're in a different season. Yeah. It's a very interesting time. And I didn't share this earlier. Of course, one of the biggest impacts for me also is writing a book. And my latest book, Life in the Leadership Lane, you wrote the foreword for that. And that was a lot of fun reading what you had to say. What's interesting about that, if you read the forward, I would love to hear your feedback on this. But I didn't share with you what I wanted you to write. I just said, hey, write a forward, and you shared an incredible story. Has anybody asked you about that story on the forward yet? I'm curious.
Yes, yeah, I've had people ask.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
They want
So
to know the ending.
they want to know the
And
endings.
look, here's the point. The forward was not about me. Okay? The forward was about life in the leadership lane.
Life and leadership lane. That's right.
So that's where my focus was.
Yeah,
And
that's-
you know, if we need a story about me, we'll write it down.
That's fantastic. I enjoy talking to people about that, because they're like, did Mark bowl that 300 game? I got to know. And I love that, but it's been great. And what I appreciate about you is not just having you a family member in the business. It's just so nice, but being able to like just kind of, hey, what do you think about this book? Or, hey, what do you think about this idea? Or just being able to talk about some different things in not even business, just life. It's been absolutely fantastic. Hey, one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I told you before the show started, the time will absolutely fly by. But one of the things I do want to talk about is you volunteer in your industry. In both NTRP and DallasHR, but you also do some other volunteering as well. You do some volunteering in your church, and I know that you do some missionary work as well. Would you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the primary area right now is a jail ministry that I'm involved in. I go once a week into the jail and meet with some of the inmates that are there, share the hope of Christ with them through Bible studies. We'll bring in information for, in fact, I was just there this last week, had a young man said about to be released and has nowhere to go. We'll give them information on where they can find places that they can stay, places where they can get work training. Sometimes we'll have places that they can contact where they can get help finding a job. I think one of those, we've had the young lady speak at DallasHR, the Cornbread Hustle, I believe.
Yeah, Sherry Garcia.
Sherry, yeah.
Right.
So Sherry, we'll hand her card out.
That's fantastic.
So that they can reach out. So the whole point of the ministry obviously is to share the gospel, but also just to try to help these guys that are looking for help. I mean, they're looking for hope. They come into this Bible study voluntarily. We'll go into a pod of 40 or 50 men, and I'll have a dozen will come in. And these guys that come in, they're looking for something different. They're looking for answers. They're trying to understand what life's all about, and so that's what we're there to help them do.
That's fantastic. It's very inspiring. I've watched you do this for a number of years. It's been going on a long time. 9 years. And I do have a question. I don't think I've really asked you this question, but what drives you? Like, where did that come from to say, you know what, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, I mean, as a Christian and a believer, one of the things that I do want to do is be able to share hope with others, share Christ with others. And, this is an avenue that allows me to do that. Allows me to do it consistently. And it allows me to share with people who are very interested in answers. And so this platform gives me the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, it's incredibly rewarding.
Tell me about that.
Well, it's just incredibly rewarding. I leave there, almost every time I leave there, I'm filled with gratitude. I'm filled with thankfulness. I'm filled with encouragement from men that you've really almost become friends with. You have been with them week after week after week for months at a time.
Okay.
And now the downside of it is I never get to know what happens.
Once they're released, you don't.
Once
Okay.
they're, you know, I'll meet with, let's say I'm meeting with Joe every
Yeah.
Monday night for a year and a half.
Okay.
And I've seen him grow. I've seen him begin to change. And then I come in the next week and Joe's not there. He's been released or transferred to the TDC or something like that. And so, you know, I always wonder,
Yeah.
you know, even weeks or months later, wonder how Joe's doing.
Yeah.
Like to see, I'm always hopeful that I will just run into
Yeah.
somebody somewhere, you know, Walmart or something. And,
Yeah.
and hopefully that'll happen sometime. But
Yeah.
but
That's-
it's rewarding.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I know we talked about it before. I shared a story in Find Your Lane. That was fantastic. It's very inspiring. Any other big moments before we go to last part of the show that you thought about before coming on today that have been impactful for you as well?
Big moments for
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
Yeah, about 15.
What are you talking about? 15. What is that all about?
Well, let me just reduce that down. So in the last couple of months, I've had, you know, 3 new grandchildren born.
Fantastic.
And, you know, there's something about watching your children have their children.
Yeah.
That is, I don't know, it's an indescribable joy.
Yeah.
I think that you have in that. So yeah, I thought about that as well.
That's fantastic. And growing.
And growing.
Yeah, and growing. I love that. And then there's something else that we just recently finished the Mark Waller family musical.
Yeah.
You also play the piano.
I do.
Yeah. And you've been doing that for how long?
You do as well.
Well, I learned to play the piano. You play the piano. How long have you been playing now?
It's been, I guess 4.5 years
Yeah.
or so.
We got to have Mark at our next NTRP or DallasHR event, or if you're listening, you may want to have Mark play at your next event.
I don't think you will.
No,
Maybe one song.
no, it's been a lot of fun. We're just you know what, it's really about, you know, I heard the former Tony Sue, of course he's passed, but he said it's not about work-life balance. So it's about work-life integration.
Yeah.
Right. Just living life day in and day out. You just being you. You know, I read something recently, and the coach Mike Leach, of course, he passed. I saw a quote from Sonny Dykes, the coach of TCU, and I thought about this as I share this story, and he said his quote was about Mike Leach is that what he did was he gave something bigger to the game, not necessarily to the game itself, but to the coaches in the game. And what he gave to them was he showed them that you can come to work as yourself. You can be yourself. And I love that, because when you think about work-life balance, then you're like, hey, it's work-life integration. You're just you everywhere you go. You can be yourself, whether you're in the office. You don't have to be any different there than you are in the community, right?
That's absolutely true. In fact, I think you rob yourself of a lot of joy in life when you try to be somebody that you're not.
Yeah.
I think you have to be yourself, and I think you have to, you know, part of building a culture and a strong team is allowing others to be themselves.
Yeah.
And you know, you can have common values, common goals within your company, but you can still allow people to be themselves. And I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I probably learned as much from you as anybody, is that I've just learned that, you know what, you just be you every day, you know, and you go in and you work hard and you go home, you take care of your family, and you just be you all day long. One other moment for me, just real quick before we get to the last part, is that I remember early in my career, and I was coming to work, and I remember my inbox. Everybody knows that inbox. Like, my inbox would just pile up as the local warehouse manager. Like, these invoices would come in for me to, you know, review and approve. Just all, you know, new orders, all these different things were coming in. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I got to stay late. And then I thought, well, no, I got to go in early. So I started coming into work at 5 a.m. Man, by 7:30, my inbox was clean. I was ready to go. But at the end of the day, it was piled high again. And I remember calling you and I was like, man, this is just an endless cycle. And you said, listen, it's just not going to go away. And if it does, that's not a good thing for you. Right. And so you've got to, you got to approach that as, hey, you know what? You go to work, you work hard and you leave and you come back and do it again. You can't try to beat the system. Do you remember that?
I do. And I walk around my office and I will tell employees, it's okay. It'll be there tomorrow. You can go ahead and leave. I mean, I have people that would work till midnight.
Yeah.
If we didn't send them home.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's fantastic.
yeah.
It'll be there tomorrow. Hey, before we go to, it's time to accelerate for some fun facts. I do want to ask you if you've been given any advice that you just find yourself sharing with others. Anything come to mind?
It's about culture. Don't make the tough call. I mean, that's incredibly important. If you have somebody in your organization that, I mean, you know this from experience, Bruce.
Yeah.
If you have somebody in your organization that makes life miserable for the people around them, when you remove them, life just gets so much better. So, that's one thing I would say. Second thing that advice that I've given this to my son repeatedly over and over and over again is just show up and give an effort. It doesn't have to be your best effort, but show up every day on time and give an effort. Let me tell you something. There's a lot of employers right now trying to find somebody that will show up every day and give an effort. And you do that over the course of time. When opportunities present themselves, you'll be ready for it.
Yeah.
Because you showed up and made an effort. And then finally, there's a quote that I just happened to, I find myself sharing it a lot.
You just happen to have it in your back pocket. I love it.
In my back pocket. And I heard it about 25 years ago.
Okay.
I've shared it numerous times, but it was Mary Kay Ash who said, everybody has an invisible sign hanging around their neck that says, make me feel important. Never forget this message when working with people.
I love that.
Feel important. And that's part of, it goes all the way back to that Harvard study.
Yeah.
Of why people leave a job. They just don't feel important. They don't feel appreciated.
Yeah. This has been so good.
All of that's really, really important.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. Oh my goodness. Hey, let's go to It's Time to Accelerate. I got about 5 questions for you that I want to ask you. First of all, any favorite books come to mind?
Yeah, 21 Laws.
Yep.
Life and Leadership.
There you go. All right.
And actually another book I didn't mention that was is still incredibly influential is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yep. Stephen Covey.
Yeah. So that was an excellent book. There's other books I can name, The GE Way with Jack Welch and numerous other books, but that 21 Laws was probably at the top of my list. Yeah.
That's one thing I find also from high performers. They are continuous learners. They continue to read books and learn and study. Hey, I do want to ask you one of my fun questions on It's Time to Accelerate. Most admired leaders in your career. I would love for you to share maybe some people that have you think, what, I admire them and I've learned a lot from them.
Well, there's numerous. I mean, the list is long, and I even go back to the men in my own company that I work for that I mentioned before. Yep. Great leaders, but the leader that kind of stands out for me probably stands out for you too. And that's Coach Bob Stoops.
Bob Stoops. Yep.
And, Coach Stoops, just his no excuse approach to things, his attitude, his level of confidence in everything that he does. The first time I met Coach Stoops was in Houston in 1999.
First year.
Right before he coached his first season. And I remember I had a friend with me who said, he kept saying, he said, Coach Stoops, what about Ahmed Kaba? What are we going to do about Ahmed Kaba? And
who was the receiver at the time?
Yeah, it was a receiver, and he'd just been dismissed.
Okay.
So he left the team.
Yeah.
And I remember just kind of watching Stoops' reaction, and the coach looked at us both and he said, look, you were losing with those guys. We don't need those guys. We've got players. We'll get guys that can play. Don't worry about it. You don't need them. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
And the next week, a national reporter in the press conference asked Stoops the same question. He didn't answer it the same way. He said, what are you going to do without Ahmed Kaba? And he said, oh, I think we can find somebody to catch 8 balls.
Yeah.
And I thought, 8?
Mm-hmm.
I went and looked it up. He had 8 catches the previous season. So, and just the way that he carried himself and the way that he led, the way that he carries, he's down at Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
Month after month, meeting with the kids that have cancer, doing all kinds of things to help people, to help the community. I just think he's just been, and of course, you and I are both big OU football fans, and always been a fan of Coach Stoops and the whole program. And so, that's just a leader that's always really kind of stood out to me that I've been able to watch from a distance.
Yeah, he exudes incredible confidence.
Yeah.
And I've admired that as well from day one.
Excuses.
And no excuses. Yeah, and
get in there and do it. And if it doesn't work out, do something else.
Yeah. He was one of my dream guests. I have a list of these dream guests that I want to have on the podcast. And
I was on that list.
Yeah, you're still, I'm going to cross your name off now. And I remember whenever he came on the show, it was a big moment for me because I thought about, going back, we were talking about John Maxwell earlier. A big moment for him was when he got to interview John Wooden.
Yes, right.
And I remember, I thought about that. And so I prepared like John Maxwell prepared for John Wooden. He prepared so well. As a matter of fact, funny story, I had 4 pages of questions for Coach Stoops. I was ready. I'd read his book 2 times. I'd listened to it on Audible a couple of times. I was ready to go. And he came onto the show and I said, Coach Stoops, man, I'm so excited to have you on the show now, just to make sure we're on the line. I'm trying to set the expectations. We talked about that earlier, right? How much time do I have? And he said, well, Bruce, he said, I've got 30 minutes. He said, I've got to get to my next meeting. I'm a business guy like you now. And I thought, man, I hit the record and we started recording, and that was fantastic. And so appreciate you sharing that. I didn't know you was going to bring him up. That's fantastic. What about gratitude? What are you grateful for, Mark?
Well, first and foremost, the kindness of God through his son, Jesus. We're getting ready to celebrate Christmas. And so, I'm incredibly thankful for that. And then also, just my family, my kids, my grandkids, they make my life so rich. They make the things that I do really worthwhile. They make the hard times worthwhile.
You're richly blessed. You're richly blessed. I love that. Hey, what about you work a lot, and then of course you're around your family and all that. What about, outside of the workplace? Like, what energizes you? What do you like to do?
Well, people energize me. Okay. So that's first and foremost. I like helping others.
Okay.
The jail ministry that we mentioned earlier.
Yep.
The gathering with family.
Yeah.
We're
going to be doing that
last week.
Yep.
For the music festival.
Yeah.
It's a great time.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. Our younger brother plays the guitar, Joe. And I love it. He ends the musical with Grandma got run over by a reindeer. Yeah. That's the close every year. Yeah. That's fantastic. I love that.
So those are the things, those are the things that, bring you tremendous joy in life and make it worthwhile.
Yeah. Okay. A final question, question I just love to ask my guests, and that is Mark, 10 years older, is around the corner. He's going to be knocking at your door, and you're going to go answer that door. What's he going to tell you?
He's going to tell me to focus on the things that matter. He's going to tell me always remember that people matter. And don't sweat the small stuff.
It's easy to sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, it is. And when you do that, when you find yourself anxious and worried, and it takes the joy away from you to where the things that do matter, you can't enjoy them because you're so worried about things that don't.
Yeah. That's good advice.
It's it's kind of a little twist on mom's advice.
What was that?
Don't worry about something till you got something to worry about. Right? I think it's in your.
She says, no, it's no biggie. It's no biggie, right?
No biggie, yeah.
I love that. I
If it's
love
a
that.
biggie, you get together and you get together, you
Yeah.
cry together.
Yeah.
But and once it's behind you, you move forward and
Yeah.
yeah. So
Well, we're getting ready to, of course, this podcast is being played December the 17th. And so it will be the final podcast of the year. And then we'll go enjoy Christmas. We're going to go to Oklahoma and visit with our family, our parents. And then, of course, the following day, we all like to go to the bowling center.
we'll be there.
And do some bowling. Shout out to our mother and father for just, I'm grateful, as you talked about gratitude, I'm grateful for them for giving us this opportunity. Dad works tirelessly, and I'll tell you, some moments for me have been the moments I've watched him get up at, I say 5 a.m, but sometimes 4, sometimes 3 a.m, but get up very early in the morning and go to work every day. And I've learned so much from him.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I've never been able to master that. 3 and 4 in the morning. He wakes up
Yeah.
and leaves.
Yeah.
And I wake up and try to figure out how to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. We are, we're richly blessed with our parents. And so, hey, listen, I appreciate you coming on. I know you're a busy guy, but I appreciate you coming on and just sharing your perspective, your story. I know that the listeners, there's some things that they're probably like, hey, I didn't know that about Mark, or wow, you know what? That's great perspective. I'm going to take that to where I'm going. It's going to help them get better. So for that, I say thank you. For those who may not be connected with you yet, I cannot imagine you not being connected to Mark yet. But if you're not, how is the best way for someone to connect with you?
probably LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You can find me on other social media too.
Yeah.
But LinkedIn's probably the easiest.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll put a link in the show notes so that way you can click on that link, get connected to Mark and learn a little bit more and just follow his journey. And I promise you, you'll learn a lot. I've learned a lot. You've been a great mentor for me. I got to tell you, I was at a Christmas concert just a few days ago, and it was Brett Eldridge concert, and I was sharing with my wife. I'm in sales, and so I know what a good close looks like, and I've never seen a close like Brett Eldridge closed the concert. And he basically had been singing with a mic and big band and everything's loud, 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 loud. And then he said, hey, I'm going to close. And he moves the mic to the side and he just starts talking from his heart. And so I just want to say thank you. I love you. I appreciate you and everything you've done for me and my career and my life. And I just wanted to share that on the podcast to let you know you mean a lot to me. I admire you. You're in my admired leaders. You're on I'll cross you off my dream list now. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you coming on, just sharing your perspective. As I mentioned, you've helped me incredible amount in my career. And so that's why I know you'll help others along the way. And so for that, I want to say thank you so much. But Brett Eldridge, he moved that mic to the side. He talked from his heart. And then he sang without any music, the first Noel.
Wow.
And then the show ended.
Wow.
And I was like, that was powerful. That's how I want to close now. And so I wanted to close this show just by letting you know that you mean a lot to me. I appreciate like our journey together, like all the stuff we do.
Yep.
It's just good stuff. And so thank you for being a role model and like showing me the way and others the way too. And also wanted to give a quick shout out to Dustin Pascal and Paul Simon. Like today, we're like, hey, we need to, right? We wanted to come. We wanted to do the podcast. We want to do it on site. I called Dustin, said, hey, Dustin, can we use your office today? He's like, you bet. Come on in. They've been pretty good leaders in our life too, haven't they?
They certainly have. Very good influential leaders. So.
Yeah. So thanks for being on the show.
I love you too, brother. And I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the books you've written, the work that you've done, and your podcast, all of the work. It's really been fun watching you grow beyond me after I handed you that first tape.
Yeah.
It's been incredible.
It all started with the tape. Hey, listen, thanks for being on the show. Merry Christmas, everyone. And I cannot wait to share this podcast. I'll talk to you later, Mark.